Welcome to another video on DexFi. This is the second one where I will be on screen claim rewards, and we're going to talk about the current APR and how you can compound yourself. Alright, since my last claim, so I didn't record it, 2 weeks have passed. When you watch my first video on this topic, this was basically the first time where I shown on screen how to buy some bonds. So before we go into the actual claiming, you can see my net deposit is $2,010 more or less. It's now worth half of it. We're going into this a little bit more. My total profit is 170 and currently it's at a huge loss. But I'm actually not very concerned about this. Why is it looking so bad? Well, I basically bought the bonds when we're at the all-time high because I didn't know that we're all-time high. And my most expensive one was $254 for a single bond. Now they cost like $41. You can see if you look here how basically the value of the bond is calculated. And one thing is the current fund value, and the second one are the total bonds minted. If you look into the current fund value, so if you look into the let's say balance sheet of the fund, you can see it's relying heavily on Ethereum. So that's why, because Ethereum is dropping significantly since my first bond was when Ethereum was at like 4,500. It's dropped significantly. But I see this as a hodl thing, more or less. I see that actually as a more or less a lot more profitable dividend stock. And even in a dividend stock, I do not care about the actual stock price as long as the dividends are flowing. And the dividends are flowing. Currently, we are at an APR around 100%. If you go to the Discord and make yourself familiar with what we are doing, how we're generating the yield, it's a bond fund, it's a bond managed by one person there or by a team there. And one of the main approaches from DexFi is using their own vaults. Their vaults are basically liquidity pools. So this RPR can fluctuate a lot depending on how much volume in the market is. If no volume is in, you are not earning much from liquidity pools. So currently it's high. I've seen it higher, but I've seen it also way lower. And in the last 2 weeks, from my amount of bonds, so I am holding 26 bonds, I have now $45 to claim. This is all on the blockchain. In this case, it's the base layer. So claiming is just I hit a button. My wallet is connected here. And you can see basically now, I just confirm. We wait a second. Successfully claimed. Now I can again open my MetaMask wallet and I can see my $45.64, which I just claimed. A little bit different stuff in here, but this is from the DexFi. So I can now use it as I want. So if you go to notifications, you can see I received my $45.64 and a little bit. But is it actually 100% RPR? No, I can tell you at least for my standing it's not. So if we assume from the calculator, we say 45.64 divided by my initial investment of 2009 times 100 is 2.27% in 2 weeks. So in 4 weeks, in a year. So we are talking about 54% RPR, so without compounding in a year. And so it's a little bit more than half, and it makes sense, right? My net deposit was 2009 and now it's worth 1070, so a little bit more than half. And the RPR is calculated based on the current price of the bonds. So if you would start now, this is of course no financial advice, please do your own research. But if you would start now, you would have a lot better starting position than I do, and you would actually get 100% RPR and not 50% like I do. And even the 50% I'm quite happy with that. So it would take 2 years to make 1x without compounding. And you can also say, okay, if you compound, you give it back again, right? No, you actually, yes, you buy the bonds, but you can redeem them for 90% of the value anytime. It takes 2 days, I think. Yeah, 2 days. And as soon as Ethereum is rising again, these bonds also rise again, as well as when the fund value is rising. So the more people invest and the more Ethereum rises, the more these are rising again. So I am absolutely not worried personally, but with every investment, you should be aware that, especially in the crypto market, it's high risk. So only use what you could afford to lose. We are currently working on a compounding feature as far as I know, but it's not yet in, so you have to do it your own. And this is a little bit annoying because you get paid out in USDC, but you need Ethereum to actually buy the bond. So we are going just to do that. Both is on the base layer, so you have to have at least a little bit of knowledge how to do that, but it's not that hard actually. You just use a cross-bridge exchange if you start with another layer than the base layer. But for example, if you have Coinbase, you can directly withdraw to a base address. That's how I do it. I basically just say I want my Ethereum. I would buy Ethereum on Coinbase and then directly send it to my base wallet address. And MetaMask supports, for example, Base or whatever wallet you want to use. But now we are in my MetaMask wallet and we have USDC. So we need that USDC to be able to be Ethereum. Well, you could use the swap feature on MetaMask, but it's quite expensive I think. And especially if you're on Base, you can use something like the Rubik exchange, where you have a promo on Base, so the fees are less. And this is also the way to go for me normally when I want to do cross network, like from the Arbitrum to Base or vice versa or something like that. But this is nothing for here. This I use for my liquidity pool stuff because I do also liquidity pools on my own. Alright, so we are on a base layer. We have USDC and we want, again on the base layer, we want to have Ethereum. Now you need to wait until you have enough to be able to buy one bond. You cannot buy fractions of a bond. So you need to have at least $41 or 0.021 Ethereum in your wallet address to actually compound. This is also the reason why I made this video now after 2 weeks and not a month, because now I'm at the point where I can compound and we already earned another cent again. And I want to use it as fast as possible. So we are going to say we want to switch $45 in Ethereum or 45 USDC. Previous swap. Now we need to confirm it on the wallet. The cool thing about Base is the very low gas fees. So I'm paying less than a cent on gas fees and we are done. So I made it off screen, but you just, as always, when a website asks you what's going to do, check the message. So that's the number one reason a lot of wallets get drained, because they do not read the permissions they are granting. Always read what you are granting. So, but I used it a lot of times and I trust it fully. So you can now see I have 0.0249 Ethereum, no more USDC, or just a little bit, 65 cents. So we can now go ahead and mint another bond. This is again requiring the confirmation in my wallet. It's a multi-step process. So first I am accepting that I want to mint. The next approval is that I want to pay. And now it's bought. And it's directly staked. So you don't need to do anything. So if you in the future want to sell, you need to unstake. As long as they are staked, they are basically already earning. Another thing, you see my earnings are again lost, but not really lost, because they're just claimed in that moment when you change your staked position. They are just automatically claimed. Alright, now I bought another bond for $41.21. Let's refresh once, because it takes a minute for the deposited amount to update. Now you can see the deposited amount is updated. And I should now narrow down again my average price of the bonds, which is way too high anyway still, but we are getting there. So now we are at $76 per bond roughly, compared to where I started, which was $254. I averaged down quite hard, and I definitely will do this as long as I can until I reach probably 50 bonds. I'm not sure where my price target is, but as long we are below $50, I will claim and directly compound as long as I can. After the price rose and above $50, we will see what I do then. But for now, I really would like to keep increasing, because I think long-term Ethereum will recover. You can see a lot of banks and a lot of institutions are using Ethereum now, at least from the news I read, to tokenize their stocks. and I see a lot of value in there for the Ethereum chain and the layer 2 chains like Base, which are also the layer 2 of Ethereum. So this one is longer than I expected it to be, but I hope this was interesting, and see you in the next one.